Good afternoon, all. Thank you for joining us today for the basic plan reading session. I am Stephanie Jakes, today's moderator for this session. I am a WisDOT compliant. I have been with the DOT since 2007 and in compliance since 2015. Our presenters for this session are Don and Benji, and I will turn it over to them to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Stephanie. Again, my name is Don Miller, and I currently work for OES, United Engineering Solutions, a small DB firm, Native American firm, based mostly in Wisconsin, and we do full service transportation. We have full service transportation consulting firm. So just some of my background, I worked for 33 years with Wisconsin DOT and helping with this basic plan reading today. I've spent a lot of years in the construction area and had read a lot of plans in my day. So I do have a lot of knowledge here that I can hopefully help you with as far as reading plans. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Benji Hayek, who's my partner today, and be helping with giving this class.
Thanks, Don. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope your morning sessions have been really great and that you're enjoying the conference. I've been in the construction industry for about 34 years. Started out as a contractor, and then since 2012, I moved over to the consultant side as a civil engineer. So I get the best of both worlds. The building aspect of it from the construction side and then the engineering side. So this is a really good fit for me to help share some of this information on this particular workshop. So I hope you enjoy it. I would like to let you guys know that if you do have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll stop to answer them as we go, instead of trying to go back and figure out what we were trying to look for. And I'm also going to turn my camera off because I want you guys to focus on the plan slides as well. So again, thanks for joining us, and why don't we get this thing started? Okay, so basic plan reading. First thing we're going to talk about is, where do you find the plans? It doesn't no good to talk about it unless you know how to find them and get to them. So you go through the WisDOT HCCI site, and if you were in our class this morning, we talked about navigating the HCCI site. So for those of you who were there this morning, bear with me for a couple of minutes. So you go to the site and then you select the advertisement 2022 advertisement schedule. As you can see here, we have it, and then you just go ahead, select that. It'll bring you to the 2022 year general process overview, and it'll give you the letting schedule by date. As you can see, we have January through December listed here. We're in the third month, which is March. So that's the only plans you can see. You can see January, February, and March, but we have to wait till we get into the let month to see the plans. So when you click on March 8th, which is the bid letting that's coming up next week, you can access the plans and the proposal for any one of the proposal numbers that you're looking at, or call numbers. So it starts at 1, and I think there's possibly 44, 45 on this particular letting for March. So you simply click on the plan and the proposal, and then just save it to your desktop or your C drive, whatever you have for storing those materials. Okay, so the agenda. We are going to go over some of these sheets in more detail than others. There's just so much information that we could spend at least a half a day going through specific parts of the plan itself. But we're going to start out with the title page. We're going to move into section 2, covering things like general notes, typical sections, construction details. We're going to take a look at erosion control, storm sewer, lighting plans, pavement marking, traffic control, survey, a whole bunch of different things. Then we're going to move on to section 3 for the estimate of quantities, section 4 which is the right-of-way plat. Section 5 is your plan and profile. Section 6 is standard detailed drawings, or your SDDs. Section 7 is sign plates. Section 8 is structure plans. Section 9, is computer earthwork data, as well as cross sections. Now, we chose this particular plan to review just to give you an idea that this one has it all, 1 through 9. And in some cases, you will only have a couple of sections that are pertinent to your specific project. Other stuff that we're going to review and touch on today is other contract documents. We're going to briefly talk about the special provisions, the standard specifications, addendums, and the hierarchy of contract documents. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don.
All right, thanks, Benji. Just as a reminder, if you have questions along the way, we'd like to answer them as we have the sheets up. So feel free to pop them in the chat, or there's a Q&A portion on your icons up above on the right side that you can either put a question in the Q&A or in the chat, and Stephanie will let us know if we've got questions. So look, here we are looking at the cover sheet. Sometimes people call it the title sheet. But it has a lot of information on it. The project information is on there, the ID, the proposal number, the county. You'll see that the improvement type is also listed on there. The location map of where it is there. The project length is on there, including some of the stationing that you can see where the project begins and ends. The designer who designed it is on there typically, and their professional stamp is typically on there. Conventional symbols are over there on the bottom left, and you can see the design designation. Federal project information number is also on this particular sheet. So if you're interested in understanding whether a plan is a federal project or not, it'll show right on the front on the title sheet or the cover sheet here. Next sheet. Okay, here you can see the cover sheet of the project that we're going to kind of walk through today. It's the Interstate Highway 41 Airport Freeway project. As Benji said, it has almost all the different types of sheets. I think it has all the different types of sheets that are available in the kind of the log of sheets. So we'll be able to walk through with this particular plan, all the different kinds, and show you all the different types of sheets within this particular plan sheet. 114670, as you can see, is the project ID on here. And as I mentioned in the last slide, all those different things are on there. So the next thing you'll notice on the upper left-hand corner of that cover sheet is the order of sheets. Very important. You can go to that right away. You don't have to open up and try to leaf through the plan. You can go there and see where the different parts are. That'll give you at least initially what part of the plan you're looking for. As far as example, if you're looking for cross sections, you're going to go all the way to the end, section 9 at the very bottom there. So next slide. So here's the order of the section number 2. Section number 2 deals with is basically the details of the plan. A lot of different specialty items you'll see here. It has some general notes, the overall general notes for the plan, a project overview. The typical sections, again, these are all kind of details that are involved within the plan, construction details, removal plans, plan details, paving details. That either could be the asphalt or concrete paving details, curb ramp details, finish contours, which is part of the grading portion, the FDMS plans, the erosion control plans, and then we'll walk through these. So no need for me to read all these. Again, all the different types of detail type plans that are in section 2. So the general notes portion is probably one of the most important parts of section 2. That's where you're going to have a lot of information relating to generally what is required on that particular plan. It's very critical to review this before you're bidding and during the project, so you understand that you covered everything in your bid, and also during the project you cover everything that's required, because if you haven't, you could find yourself in a bit of trouble, either not bidding enough or not being complete as far as the engineers indicate when you're done with that particular item. So miscellaneous notes also pertain to the utility information contacts, some of the stationing, those types of things, elevations, unit of weight, And then some of the things as determined by the engineer is always a key phrase you got to watch out for. Mixers, depth charts, WisDOT, and design contacts. Very important to understand who those folks are. And again, it's a catch-all for items, contract documents do not show elsewhere. So very important part. General notes, know them, highlight them, maybe even pull that page out, tack it up on your wall. That's got a lot of things that you need to make sure and understand. And you see on this page here, the general notes over here on the left is in that box. You'll also see some other charts here. HMA mixtures is shown here. In the middle, you've got utility contacts. Very important that you understand where that is. Digger's hotline down below. Then you've got other contacts, and including the design contact for the plan. And then there's a repeat of the order of section 2 notes, or excuse me, sheets are right there. So again, if you're looking for a certain sheet, it's very easy to look at that and say, well, it's about halfway through. So that gives you a good, so you don't have to go through all the different sheets in order to find what you're looking for. So in section 2, you'll see project overview. This sheet gives you kind of a general, gives you beginning and end station. It gives you just just a little bit of an overview of kind of what the project involves, the limits of the project, what areas are being affected. So just kind of a general overview with some of the stationing and those types of things. So you kind of get a feel for it. As you're looking at plans, it'll give you a good idea where to start for this particular project.
Hey, Don, this is Steph. There's one question in the chat. If I'm focusing on clearing and grubbing, what section am I looking for? If you want to put some emphasis as you explain the plan on that, please.
Okay, that's a good question. Typically, there may be a detail on the plan that shows that, and as we go through, we'll watch for that and kind of point that out as we look at some of the sheets in the plan. There also, when Benji's going to talk a little bit about miscellaneous quantities, it will tell you clearing and grubbing quantities, and also will show you the stationing and offsets for those items. And clearing and grubbing should be in there, which will also then give you the information you need to go back to the plan sheets to see where those actually are on the plan sheets themselves. So we'll try to remember that and show you where you can find the clearing and grubbing. Good question, Marcus. Thank you. So what we're looking at here right now is the typical sections. This particular sheet has the existing typical sections on it, and that's a cross section. It kind of shows from left to right. It shows all the different dimensions of the existing pavements, the existing sidewalks, the existing curbs. Also gives you depths of the existing pavements, that type of thing. Very important to understand what's there to begin with, because a lot of those will be involved with removals. They may be involved with what you're going to put on top of it. So you have to understand what's there to begin with. Again, 2 different typicals here. Each typical has a stationing limit underneath it. So when you look at your finished typical sections, this next page here, you'll also see underneath each one of those finished typical section underlined there, it gives you the stationings where these typicals apply to. Again, this is the new sections. This is the information on the widths of what you're going to put in as far as the depths, and also all of the different types of items that you're going to be putting in. You'll notice that the top one is more of has a median section to it for certain stations. The bottom one does not have a median involved. Still has sidewalks on each side and has the similar pavement structure, which is described in all the arrows that point to all the different items on this particular typical section. This is another detail as you work through the details here in section 2. You'll see this is a single slope barrier. Excuse me, just an example of the types of details you're going to see here. It shows kind of some of the dimensions on the actual dimensions on building it, including also the rebar that's involved with it, the spacing for those. So again, just a basic construction detail. This is the type of thing you'll see in section 2. This would be the removal plan sheet, which shows, you'll see in the bottom left a legend, which gives you the information as to what you're looking at, all the different symbols of the removals. It might be, it might tell you to remove certain depths. It might tell you this is asphalt removal. It might tell you this is a concrete removal. But again, you'll see from the legend down below that pertains to all the different items shown in the plan view above. Also gives you stationing for those removals, which is very important for you to understand as you work with the engineer on making sure that you are doing removals as per the plan.
Marcus, this is where if you look in the legend, it does call out the clearing and grubbing here. So typically your removal plans under section 2 will provide you with the clearing and grubbing. Sometimes they're not very easy to find, but you can see that, you know, there's areas, the little clouds pillows, if you will, those are removal areas by the station. So it's the removal plans is typically where you would find the clearing and grubbing removal limits.
Thanks for jumping in there, Benji. I'm glad you caught that. And again, as I mentioned before, they'll be shown here in the detail, and they'll also be shown in the quantity sheet. So Benji will talk to you a little bit about that, how you'll see that these items in the quantity sheets as well. Next slide. Okay, this is a plan detail, which gives you kind of a look from above down onto the project and the improvement you're going to be working on. In the upper left, there's a legend, which has a lot of different item numbers and things in the circle there that pertain to items on the particular plan sheet here. Again, this is looking down, showing you limits of pavements, bridge limits, those types of things. Again, a lot of this information is used for laying out the project when the survey lays it out, as well as you building it to understand what items go into that particular improvement. More plan details. Again, this is we looked at the other one was more of the main line, and I think this is the side road, if I'm not mistaken, Benji.
Sorry, I was on mute. No, this is underneath. This is on I-41, 43, 94.
Okay.
60th Street goes over the top, so they're giving you both the top, a view of 60th Street, as well as what you're going to be encountering underneath on the main freeway.
Okay, again, it's the same type of sheet that I just showed you, but just another area, and you're following the legend to get the information from that sheet as well. Okay, this sheet shows another detail sheet in section 2, the paving details, which gives you more information about all the things such as the radiuses on the curb and gutter, the widths of the lanes, those types of things for your paving. Again, you'll see in the box there, I think that's notes. Any one of these detail sheets can have special notes. It's important that you look at those, highlight them, make sure they're noted so that you can make sure and get these noted items in your bids, and also build them according to the notes. This is basically another detail on curb ramp details. Again, another box there that shows the notes specifically relating to the curb ramps. Down below, I'm sorry, Benji, go back one. Down below, you'll see a lot of the information relating to how you lay those out, the locations where they're at, so on and so forth. So a lot of information on these details, and the legend down below on the far lower left. This is the freeway traffic management system details, which shows a little bit about the electrical boxes, also about some of the wiring and some of the conduit runs. And also you'll notice a lot of notes there. So a lot of these notes pertain to items that the electrical contractor will have to bid. So again, they'll be concentrating on this particular freeway traffic management sheet for some of their details in their bidding. Another sheet with freeway traffic management system, more of a plan view showing the layout. A lot of information on this sheet, as you can see, for all the different pieces that are involved with the freeway traffic management system and the electrical involved with that. This sheet what is this one? I'm missing.
It's an erosion control sheet.
Okay, yeah, I could barely just see that. This is the erosion control sheet, which, as you can see, has there's a lot of different symbols there. The symbols are in the upper left that are circled. That's the different types of erosion control items that are being placed on the project. Also has stationing limits typically for these things. So this is the kind of sheet that if you're an erosion control subcontractor, you'd be looking at this. Try to understand where things are being placed in relation to different things on the project. So again, a lot of these will be repeated in the actual quantities and the miscellaneous quantity sheet, but these are the actual sheets that show you how to put them in, as the notes relating to that, and all the different items on the erosion control plan. And then we have the storm sewer plan. This plan is kind of a plan sheet and a profile sheet all in one sheet. The top portion is the plan sheet. As you're looking down on the project, you can see all the different storm sewer structures noted with the circles. Those are all the structure numbers, and all the different pipe runs are noted there. And then on the bottom, you'll see kind of a profile view of all that. So everything, as you translate down from the plan view down into the profile view, or the side view, you might want to call it, you'll see all of those structures and the piping repeated again down below. But in it, you can see it in relation to the existing ground, which will help you understand, how much cut is involved with your storm sewer work in all the different locations where you're building this storm sewer. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Benji at this point.
Thanks, Don. A lot of information. So again, if you have any questions pertaining to everything that we've discussed, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A box, and we will absolutely try to answer it for you. So I am going to move on to a couple more sections in section number 2, and we're going to start out with permanent signing. These are pretty typical plans as far as the types of signs, the required signs that go on freeways. They're pretty uniform, and it's not up for interpretation. Basically, you're told exactly what's supposed to go there. So you have a series of permanent signing plans. You have, and you're looking at it. So you always want to make sure, especially if there's staging, that you are working with the other contractors to make sure you don't put your permanent signing in and they still have earthwork to do or something along those lines. You have to learn how to coordinate certain aspects of the project. So again, the lighting and general notes and construction detail. Lighting here is really important, and I showed this sheet because they're redoing this bridge, rebuilding it, and there are going to be some electrical components built into the bridge. And these are the things that you need to talk with the bridge builders about, making sure that you can get your conduit in, working together, reading the notes. There's a lot of notes that say at engineer's discretion, incidental to the bid item. If you're reading through, even if it's not your particular item, if you see as directed by engineer or incidental to bid item, highlight it so you don't have to go back and search for it again. The designer is being extremely upfront with exactly what they expect and how it relates to special provisions, standard provision or specifications, and what's written here if it's not mentioned in anything else. So make sure you read the notes anywhere on the page. Super important, because that's where people get hung up when there's an issue. They just didn't read it or read it correctly. So,
Benji, we have a question that's come up on station numbers, asking if are the station numbers organized in a standard way? For example, do all odd numbers run north-south or east? Start on the south side of the project limits and sequentially increase as it moves north. Does that make sense?
yeah, I'll start this out. Don, you can jump in. Excuse me.
Okay, yeah, I can jump into this one. Typically, stationing runs from south to north. So if you're looking at a plan that the roadway runs from south to north, you'll probably see a stationing more like a 1 and maybe goes to a 10. 1 plus 0, 0 goes to 10 plus 0, 0 as you're moving to the north. And when you're going east to west, it typically would start from a lower number on the left side or the west side and then going towards the east. Now, that isn't always the case, but that's typically what is done when you're looking at it. Because a lot of times you may have configurations with interchanges and ramps and all kinds of things that go all different directions. So the stationing may not exactly always follow what I just said there, but in general, they do basically do what I talk about. But again, they typically run south to north and west to east, but not always. So you'll have to be careful. And then there's not really any, as far as odd numbers or even numbers, there's nothing like like you see when you have signing typically has odd numbers, or I think odd numbers are south, north, and south, and even numbers are east and west. But that's not necessarily the case with stationing. So hopefully that helps.
You also have to remember with stationing, there's these things called station equations. So if you're moving from one county into another county, it doesn't necessarily mean that that endpoint is going to have the end station on the county line is going to have the same beginning station moving into another county. Okay, or if it's a township line or city line into a town, it's called a station equation. And even though it's exactly in the same spot, it might actually have different stationing. So that's one thing you also have to look at when you're doing that, looking at your plan, especially if you're scaling your plan or doing a takeoff and you see these numbers and you're going, well, why am I so far off? It's because you have a station equation or a station break in there. So here we have the pavement marking. Pavement marking is one of those things where the designer is looking at every possible scenario, looking at what's already been installed. Are they changing it, from years prior? Are they just going to be remove and replace, that kind of a thing? You always want to check the type of the work that's being done and the little bubbles under the legend against the miscellaneous quantities. Take a look at it. Does it make sense? Are you supposed to put an 18-inch or 24-inch stop bar there? What are your diagonals? All these different things. And if you have a question about it and you're doing a takeoff, and I use pavement marking a lot because some are dead nuts. I mean, right there, the quantities are correct and everything else, but there might have been time when this particular plan was being designed, it might have gotten shelved, or there could have been a delay for, environmental or whatever, and the municipality or the county or somebody went out there to do maintenance and it changed. And it's not like they're going to run out there every day and take a look at it. They're working off the stuff they have to work from. So there's times when things get changed that don't necessarily make it into the final plan, depending on how what the time frame is. So always check those. That's just good practice to check what you see against the miscellaneous quantities. So here we have the traffic control data. Again, we have general notes. We have, those are very important. It gives you so many things. One, for instance, is if you're doing nighttime operations, that all drum tapers shall have type C steady burn warning lights. Anyone who's doing this already knows this, but it's telling you absolutely this is what you have to have. Same thing with temporary pavement marking legends. Tells you what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to put it, and sizing, color, the whole bit. Same with the pavement marking removal legend. Gives you the little bubbles and tells you where you're supposed to remove these lines. And again, these are things you want to compare to the miscellaneous quantities. And of course, we have our traffic control legend, which gives you all the different symbols that you'll see on the plans themselves. As an example, this is a traffic control detail for a 3-lane full freeway closure. It gives you where the signage goes, gives you the traffic control notes, and again, read the notes. And it gives you the basic layout in conjunction with the MUTCD. This is the layout. It's not in stone. There are certain things that might tweak this just a little bit. Before you do any tweaking, though, you have to have it discussed. But this is your best basic typical layout for a 3 full-lane freeway closure. This, I showed this because a lot of the projects have detours. I mean, how many times have we gone down the road and we see the detour signs? It's amazing. You might see, depending on where you are on the road, a couple of banks of signs. But a detour route, especially for a project like this, has got so many signs. So while you're doing this, you have to read the notes about covering it up. How is it getting paid? Is it incorporated into the detour route bid item? Is it paid separately? There's all these different things. So you have to make sure that you're reading all the notes and you understand how the items are paid. The other thing we have is the alignment diagram, as well as the survey control. The designer gave you all these different benchmarks and control points in this. So when you're doing your GPS for survey, you know, when you're benching to do your survey layout and everything else, they provided that for you. And there's also a section in the special provisions on this particular job that does talk about that. So section 3, estimated quantities and miscellaneous quantities. Some people might say, well, isn't that the same thing? Well, actually, no, it's not. The estimate of quantities is a sheet at the beginning, right before the actual breakout and breakdown of the miscellaneous quantities. It'll give you the prop line, which is the sequential ascending order. It starts at 002 and it can go up to, there's no finite number of items you can have on a project, but it does increase by 2. Then you have the actual bid item itself. You have a description of what that bid item is. It tells you what unit of payment it comes under, whether it's an inch, cubic weight, a pound, square foot, day, linear foot, square yard, cubic yard. It'll tell you right here. This is your total that they show for this particular project, and this is your quantity. Now they have a total and a quantity because sometimes a project will have 2 different project IDs, but the material, the quantities go under the bid item will cover the 2 project IDs. So they'll have one estimated quantities for one bid project ID. Then they'll have another one for the other project ID, but they will have a total quantity if they're this if they have like bid item numbers. It's a little confusing. This one thankfully only had one project ID, but if you do get into projects with multiple project IDs, make sure you're looking at all the sheets and you know what the actual final quantity is for that bid item. You'll also find right after the estimate of quantities is the Earthwork Summary. If you're doing earthwork, you learn how to read these, make sure you understand. The designer, will always typically always give you a undistributed amount. So learn how to read these, and it talks mostly about the excavation for under bid item 205.0100, but it also gives you the 208.1100 select borrow expanded EBS backfill. So these are your common acts totals that they're anticipating. Make sure you're reading the notes below because it gives you all sorts of information as far as the sum of cuts and fills. It gives you, what your available material is for salvage versus unsuitable material. So these are things you absolutely want to look at if you're going to be participating on these types of bid items. Okay, I pulled out the next couple of sheets because a lot of people get trapped and caught up on this. This particular sheet gives you the notes that says one asterisk is for project information only. 2 asterisks is additional quantities found elsewhere. And then it's also telling you that all covered signs to be covered for the duration of the work in area counts as 1 cycle only. So if you cover it up, it only counts as 1 until you take it down. And it's telling you it's supposed to be covered for the duration of the work in the area. So those are not paid by days. Those are paid by 1. It gets put up, stays for however long, gets taken down. That's 1 cycle. So I want to draw your attention to traffic control signs because you see we have a double asterisk there. And we have a total quantity of 31,106 signs. But I know because it has a double asterisk that there's some quantities elsewhere, so I have to go find those. The easiest way I do it is I search the plan. I just put in Control F, put in the item number that I'm looking for, and then just keep hitting next. So that's what I did when I was putting this together, and I'm like, oh, cool, brings me right to it. So again, it has additional quantities are found elsewhere. Well, we already know where 1 is. We know that our quantity is about 164,000 something. And here we have 132,912. And I did do the math. It does match. So we know that this particular item is showing quantities in 2 different locations. So you always want to make sure that you're finding all the quantities and that they're adding up to what the schedule is saying. All right, another thing that we're going to move on to section 4 under Plat. This gives a lot of good information about the monuments. It gives a lot of good detail about the notes as far as right-of-way boundaries. It also gives information on relocation orders for utilities. I could spend about an hour, hour and a half just going over this sheet with you guys, but I will spare you. But remember that this is in here, and just don't flip past it. Don't think, oh, I don't have to read that. Take the time, read it. You'll get some good information from it. So section 5 is the plan and profile. And I actually took this picture that we're seeing here. This is Highway 11, Burlington Bypass. And Stark was our prime on there. And we were doing 3 pavers side by side. And I couldn't find the total awesome one. They had all their boxes up exactly at the same. But this was a really good job. We had a lot of great DBE firms out there with us. And so I just had to stick this one in. So our plan and profile. You see at the top, we have the plan view. You pretend like you're looking down at it, and it gives you an idea. And Don explained this earlier on. So on this particular one, you can see the top is the plan, the bottom is profile. We have a start or a begin project, and we also have an end project on either side of the page. You'll note that we do have a dotted line and a solid line. Well, excuse me, the notes are telling you that the dotted line is an existing ground. That's your existing ground right now. It's also telling you right where your existing bridge deck is. So this project is elevating the roadway and the bridge deck, and that is shown as the finished profile, and that's your solid line. There's a lot of good notes on this page. Down at the bottom lower left, you'll see that you have a gray, like a shaded gray number, and then you have a darker gray or almost black. That is your elevation. Your light grays are typically, or if not always, your existing elevations, and your darker is your finished elevation. The plan and profile isn't totally loaded down. with notes and information. The notes and information that are on here is direct and concise and tells you exactly what you need to know based on this particular page. So here it's telling us that we have an existing structure and we have a new structure, and it's telling you where it goes. It's talking about how you're going to remove the structure and then put a different one in its place, giving you different, taking a 4-span steel girder bridge and making it a 2-span 45-foot wide pre-stressed concrete girder bridge. So these are all different things, and that'll also help you if you are part of a demo team. At least now you know that you're taking down a steel bridge where you might not have known that had you not read any of the other pages. Also, they provide plan and profile for ramps and roadways, anything that's within the project footprint. So again, it's the same top view or the plan view, and then you have your profile view, and this is particular to ramp A and B for this project. The same information is also going to be on the sheet as far as elevation, existing and finished profiles, and your start and stop positions. I am going to turn it over to Don now, and he's going to give you some great insight on the standard detail drawings.
Okay, as you can see, this sheet shows a list of the standard detail drawings. It shows the list of the ones that are on this particular plan. Well, where do standard detail drawings come from? The DOT has a whole list of hundreds of standard detail drawings that they put in plans because they are standard for that particular item for whatever plan the designer needs to put them in. So what the designer does is, as they design, they have a whole bunch of items that are standard that they then say, what standard details do I need for those items that are put in my particular plan? And so this particular designer has chosen these as being standard details that are not changed, but they're the standard ones that are going to go into this particular plan. These are different than the details we saw in section 2, where they are specifically specific details drawn separately and are different than the standard details. So again, in this particular plan, you've got the list of standard details here, this page that shows which ones are in your plan. This is important because as you are building these items that you may be bidding, you now know that, oh, that's standard. That's the same standard detail that I used on this other plan, but I'm going to go check it just to make sure it hasn't changed since the last time I looked at it. So just because they're standard doesn't mean you don't need to check them out. So let's take a look at some of these as we move into the plan, some of these specific ones. We won't have time to go through all of them, but we'll look at a couple of them just to show you, give an example of what they are. The first one you can see here is a standard detail drawing. The number is circled on the lower right there. The standard detail drawing number. This one is for concrete curb and gutter. As you can see, a standard detail drawing sheet typically has general notes. Then it will have the dimensional characteristics of whatever item it is, including, in this particular case, including rebar, if rebar is placed. The dimensions of the concrete, in this particular case for curb and gutter, the slopes, so on and so forth. So the different types of curb and gutter, you may have on the plan, it may call for a type K curb and gutter or a reverse slope curb and gutter. All of these are shown within the curb and gutter general, the standard detail drawing for concrete curb and gutter. This one shows a concrete base, which is an electrical base type 10. So you can see, again, there's a section on the upper left with general notes. And all these are very important that you understand all these, because that's how you will have to construct these items on the project. You can see the details there that show the rebar, shows the boltings, it shows the concrete dimensions for the base, so on and so forth. Again, a standard detail drawing with the number on the bottom right there, standard detail number. It's hard to read there, but 9C11-10, I believe is what it says. This again would be put in a plan by the designer if they need concrete base type 10 on the project. Next, we've got a section 7, which is sign plates. Before, Benji had shown kind of a plan view, a layout of all the different sign plates. But what it didn't show there was how are these signs constructed. what are the dimensions for the lettering, what are the dimensions for the sign itself, what are the colors to use. All of those things are indicated here on the sign plate, standard details. So these are not standard details. These are sign plates that are actually for this particular project. So these sheets, these sign plate sheets, show what they need to design, what they need to build as far as the suppliers for the signs for this particular project. All right, the next section is section 8, which is the structures, and it's kind of weird because, typically a structures is almost like a plan within a plan, because there's this kind of typically a structure plan is designed by a different area of the structure unit, either in central office with DOT, or maybe it's a structures area, maybe a sub-consultant does this, or a sub part of a company does this. But it's kind of a plan, a structure plan within the overall plan. So this, you'll see, if you move on to the next page there, you'll see where there's a list of drawings within that structure plan. You'll see in this particular one, there's 33 different plans of a structure plan, again, within an overall plan. So this is very important, obviously, for the bridge constructors to understand. And this particular one is a cross section. So this would be the list of drawings, page number 2 within the plan. So you can see down at the bottom right, there's a sheet number 2 of 33, and that refers to the structure plan itself. So that's an independent numbering system for the structure plan, independent of the overall plan sheet's numbers. But again, this is in, I believe it's in section 8, I think it was, is the structures. So this again shows the cross section of the bridge itself, some of the substructure units and the beams, so on and so forth, the dimensions. This particular plan within the structure plan is the general notes and quantities. It's a very important sheet within the structure plan because it gives you the total estimated quantities up there in the upper left. It gives you also where those quantities are located. You can see it's got some information. Some quantities are located in the south approach, north approach, etc. The abutments, north abutment. So again, this is the kind of the breakdown of quantities for the bridge items. It gives the constructor an idea of where all the items are. Then also there's a very important part in the general notes, which pertains to the structures. Down below, down lower right, kind of gives you a cross-sectional view of the proposed section. And again, a couple different cross sections there relating to the bridge. In the circled area, it gives the profile, the actual vertical profile of this grade line for the
Don, we have a question regarding standard detail drawings manual and how often is that revised? And when revisions occur, are revisions published in a summary? An example, last year on a project, the plan had an old standard detail drawing, but by the time they did install on some guardrail, the standard detail drawing was changed since the plan was drafted. Consequently, they had to go out and redo the work.
Okay, my understanding is there's periodic revisions of the standard detail drawings, and it might not be all at one time. The standard detail drawings are kind of designed by different areas. For example, if it's a structure related item, the structures group probably would be doing the revisions. So, but you'll see on each one of them, the standard detail drawings, they have dates of revision on them. So when we get to the end of the presentation, Benji's going to go over kind of the hierarchy of what governs. Now, in Marianne's particular case here, I'm not exactly sure if someplace other than on the plans itself, they had changed the requirement for this standard detail drawing. I'm not sure, but certainly if it was in the plan and it was not changed anywhere else and within the contract documents, and Benji will talk about all the pieces of the contract documents, that would be something that would be of a concern, certainly to a contractor. How can they be advised that they weren't supposed to install it per the
Okay,
standard.
well, let me jump in, Don.
Okay,
Marion, what happens, and this, coming from both the contractor and the consultant project manager for construction, it is a really good rule of thumb to look at any updates. If you're on the list to get the regular updates for all the documents that WisDOT is updating, it'll tell you the SDD. You can get on the mailing list for all updates, and it'll say SDD change for, what is it, section 14 or whatever it may be, that this is now what's required. And I see the argument because you get it based on the current documentation that was within that plan. There is some little caveat somewhere that says standard detail drawings can be updated as required. So I always make it a habit that if there is a standard detail drawing to something that is getting changed quite often, I always ask, is this the latest standard detail drawing? And then I get, well, no, this is the one that's in the plan. And I'm like, well, okay, that's great. Let's talk to the designer. Let's send a DIN in and say, hey, there's a new SDD out here. This is under the one prior to this. Are we to use this one, or should we upgrade to the other one? So the onus or the burden at times is often put on the contractor to make sure that you're keeping abreast of all updates. So, I mean, I get both sides because I've been on both sides. So good practices is that if there is an SDD, check to see if there's a new one.
Sounds like some good advice, Benji. We do have about the presentation.
Okay, so Don, you're going to have to go through this a little bit.
okay.
Go through this one. This is
Okay, this is just another detail within the bridge plan, pier cap details, which shows the billibars, which is important because that just talks about the reinforcing steel that's required that the contractor needs to order. Okay, Benji.
All right, section 9 is mine in the cross sections. I wanted to throw this one in here too. This picture was from 1958 when they did the first ribbon cutting ceremony on the first portion of I-94 in Wisconsin. And this was done in Waukesha, and I thought, oh, this is a great thing to do because we do so much work on this system. Earthwork data, we talked about it before. It comes after the estimate of quantities will also show up in the cross-section portion of the plan, which is under section 9. As we move into cross sections, on the left-hand side, that's your elevation. In the middle, the 0 is your center line. And then as you move left, that's negative. As you move right of the center line, that is positive. And then over here, you have your stationing. That's how you read it. It's kind of small, and sometimes it gets so cluttered with information, you've got to take your iPad and blow it up just so you can read a number. So what I want to do here is talk real quickly about something. At the center line, 0.00, our elevation is 781.99. We move 5 feet over. The top of subgrade, where we're going to start putting our base course down, whatever it's called out here, is 77 or 778.56. Our finished grade elevation is 781.78. So just so you understand how to read these, you've got your top of subgrade or your blue top, and then you've got your actual finished grade for the whole entire structure of the roadway. We also want to talk about, so at 16 feet out, you have the same 2 different numbers. One is at your subgrade, one is at your finished grade. And then at 28 feet out, same thing. You have a subgrade, top of subgrade, and then your final finished grade when all is said and done. What I want to draw your attention to is right under that 2%, you can kind of see there's a dashed line. You can certainly see it underneath this part, under where the first circle that came up. Well, that's your existing line. That's your existing grade. So in this case, we had to add more. But right here, in order to get where we need to be for our depths of base, asphalt, concrete, whatever this is calling for. And to get our 2% in this 12-foot lane, we actually have to cut a little bit of the existing ground out. So that's how you read these. Sometimes, like I said, you can't really see it. You got to blow it up. And over here is your stationing. This is significant to this point on the project at this station. So the other contract documents real quickly that we want to talk about are the special provisions. Plain and simple, always read the special provisions before you create and submit a quote. There's too much information and details in there that can completely trip you up if you do not read this. And you also have to read it throughout the life of the project. If you have addendums, always check the HCCI site for any addendums on any project that you plan on bidding. If there's an addendum and it has an SOI after it, it means that it's a statement of, oh, now I'm going to screw it up. It means the quantities have changed. Somewhere in there, there's a change to the original quantities that were listed in the original bid. You have your standard specifications, and y'all know where to find those. You can still order a hard copy, or you can get them through the WisDOT site. And then we talked about, we've been hinting around the whole time about the hierarchy of contract documents. Addendum and modifications are the hierarchy. This comes up right out of section 105 in the standard specifications, followed by the special provisions, plans, standard special provisions, and the standard specifications. So your standard specifications are lower than anything else, your addendum being the highest. And a lot of contracts don't have addendum before bidding, but they will have them during the project in the term of modifications. So you always want to keep an eye out for that. And then your STSPs, which are your standard special provisions, are a set of standard special provisions that can be individually added as appropriate to the contract proposal. So,
Benji, a question's come in real quick on after the plan sets are distributed and printed, if there's any changes to those plans, be alerted or notified.
okay, so basically what you want to do is make sure that pull the plans and the special provisions, but make sure you go back. I don't believe that there's any, it might be something through BidX that might say, hey, there's an addendum, but it's your responsibility to yourself and to your prime to go back to the website, the HCCI site, and it'll tell you that there's an addendum. If you're seriously thinking about bidding on something, you should check every day or every other day. There's really not that many addendums, and basically you should check right after the deadline for the questions and answers, because a lot of the addenda are created as a result of submitted questions and the subsequent answers.
All right, that does get to all the questions in the chat. We do have about a minute and a half yet to wrap.
I just wanted to add if there are contract modifications to the change order, contract modifications of the contract, it's up to you as a sub to talk to your prime about that. That's basically the prime's responsibility to get that information to you if there are modifications to the actual contract mods. So.
Also, I'm going to let you guys know that if you want additional assistance, it is available through the DBE support services. You can get a hold of Donna or I individually or through WisDOT, and we would love to spend some one-on-one time with you guys. We can, whatever works for you, just let us know, and we can continue to walk you through all this stuff.
Great. Thank you, Benji and Don.
Yeah.
Who has attended. We appreciate you being here. I did place the survey in the chat. If you would please click that link and complete the workshop survey that is for each workshop. We'd appreciate your feedback. Also remember to visit the exhibitors in the lounge to network with other attendees. Don or Benji, anything else? I think we've answered all the questions in the chat.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks all. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks everybody for attending.